This is the next update on the Liverpool Overhead Railway project, which Bob and I are making, and there's been a number of advances since the last update, but I'm starting back at the Herculaneum station. At the Herculaneum station, there's Dingle down buried away, because of course the southern terminus of the Liverpool Overhead Railway was actually underground. So here we are at at Herculaneum station, with its remarkable footbridge over the L&YR railway lines leading up to the road there, and there's, of course, we're just blocking that in at the moment. But the station and a lot of this sort of warehousing is comparatively new, and may even be changing this carriage sheds. I'll be able to explain why in a moment. But you can see here that we've got a lot more of the docks actually mapped out now, and there was a very substantial network of docks here at Herculaneum, and this was the oil terminal, and I recently discovered another photograph showing the pipe work that stretched from the oil caissons here. These are preserved, by the way, by English Heritage, I think it is, and they would be used for for putting fuel into railway oil wagons, but also to discharge oil from tankers. And I've been onto military trains, and Jean-Guy there has been extremely helpful indeed, and very supportive, and is allowing me to reskin a whole load of boats and ships which he has created for his Second World War naval engagements in trains. And you can see here some of the docks, and the docks are really beginning to come into shape now. We're getting that sorted out. Bob has done a lot of work on those docks to pull them into place and get the basic pattern of them sorted out. There's still quite a lot of things to do in the way of fittings for the docks, but you know, in due time. So carrying on northwards along the Liverpool Overhead, you can see this complex of docks at Liverpool. This will be the Mersey, by the way, out here, and in the distance be Birkenhead, and well, the Wirral. And so as we're moving north, past one of the Three Graces, where are we? I think we're near. Which station is that? James Street Station. Now these stations are still just a couple of different types that we've used, apart from here, which is Pierhead Station, which was a bespoke station for the layout, but the others are sort of generics based on a couple of the stations, and we're going to need a few more of those as well to give a more accurate representation of the different stations along the line. But as you can see here, the amount of dockage now that's been planned out is really getting substantial, and you can begin to see some of the developments. And here we are now, we're just passing, let me just zoom in to get the name of it, I can never remember the names of these stations. Nelson Dock, there we are. So north of Nelson Dock, that was where the Liverpool Overhead did a sort of a wiggle and dropped down underneath a pre-existing railway, which was the Lancs and Yorks coal line, and a high level coal line, and that ran to these cranes along the dockside here, which then unloaded coal in boxes essentially from the Lancs and Yorks wagons, and loaded it into colliers or into coal barges that were in Nelson Dock. So this is the most recent thing we've been working on, these cranes, which are basically, I've sort of spoofed them up from what we know of cranes. They were initially hydraulically powered, but I've turned them into steam powered to show the sort of later period. And then the dock gates are just here, and we've got a wall to come along here to separate this bit of road from, it runs in between these two dockyard walls, and this is where the Liverpool Overhead Railway ducked under, and we had some fun with this, of course. The greatest fun perhaps was with this bridge, which looked like it was just an ordinary bridge, but is it heck? It's far from ordinary. First of all, this section here was designed to be raised, and this is Regent Road now, and there's not much left. You can just see that part of the bridge there now. If you go onto Google Earth and run along Regent Road, you'll see a bit of this wall and that sort of cut stone piece there. But this is where the Liverpool Overhead Railway ducked under the high level line, and so this section would have raised for high road traffic. Can't imagine what it could be, but there you go. And so we modelled that with the sort of lifting gear, but it doesn't actually function. It won't actually lift up. It's just a scenery item. But even to get this curve and to get these sections right, because the photographs are really quite confusing, but to get that very sharp curve there and the sweep around here has taken us a lot of fiddling about before we got it somewhere near right. But I think we're there now, and that's of course the great thing about the Liverpool Overhead Railway project. It throws up all sorts of curved balls for us to try and deal with. And now as we go further north, this is the bits of the dock which in the previous update showed you was pretty much in place. We've got to think about our next set of models to make, and we're sort of chewing over the best way to approach this, and warehousing is going to be the prime one, I think, and so does Bob. Bob has suggested that warehousing has really got to be our next closer look. I'm just looking at Pacific, and the smoke's off to one side, so that's another thing I'll have to on my very long list of jobs to do, because it should be more like this one here. This is what's that one there? Worthing. Nice steamer. And so there's plenty to do. There's plenty of room for plenty more ships, of course, boats and ships. And here's Great Eastern. Oh, my lovely ship, Great Eastern. And some dockyard cranes already appearing, which is very good. And some more warehousing and a bit more of the industrial side, and the dry dockage here that was really important. And if we head north from where the Langston Yorks Railway crossed over, or more accurately the Liverpool Overhead Railway ducked under, you can see this is all where the Seaforth docks were being built and laid out. And here is Seaforth Sands station. It's also the carriage shed and signal box and curved platforms for Seaforth Sands, and this was the northern terminus for many services that would be using the would come in on this line, then run down here to the north, or northwest east rather, cross the crossover, and then come onto the Dingle platform to head south again. So you can see here that we're getting close now. This also took quite a bit of sorting out, but that's quite a remarkable setup there for Seaforth Sands station. This is actually the third building on the site, and I've had to make some compromises with it. The first one was the original terminus, which was really quite elegant, and perhaps one day I'll make it, but it's not high on the list at all. That was replaced in 1906 by a much simpler, smaller carriage shed, which was in turn replaced about 20 years later by this one. And even this one is not quite as it seems here, was not quite as it appears here, because this wall appears to have curved out more. Now, I didn't want to do that. I thought it was overcomplicating it. So it's a simple 4-road carriage shed. We've made some compromises there. There should be a corrugated shed, is the only way to describe it, bothy, just at the end of that little stub, and that's where the little steam loco that was used for permanent way work operated. And then going east rather, there's the cross bridge to from the station down to the across to the carriage shed, and then you've got the steps going down to street level. And then along here we've got the embankment. Now we've got quite a complicated business here, and we're far from finished working on this. This is just placeholder stuff, and we're discussing how to deal with the line as it ran on to Seaforth and Litherland, and that's one of Andy 06's stations there we put there, just so as to run the route. So there we are. I wasn't going to run the session because I'm having all sorts of fun with that for some reason. If I load the session to have it running, then the environment settings on mine change. This is trains the new era, and I get the water. It looks very bright green, but if I hit just default environment, then it goes back to the proper blue. So I don't know what's causing that, and I'm not going to worry about it because we're just onwards and upwards going to push on with the model making. Now there are a couple of things in the offing that we've got to do. Well, it's an understatement, because if I pull back here, you'll see that we've got the map tiles. Are they going to appear? No, they're not. Well, they're not in that bit anyway. But there are places where the map tiles, we've tiled the map of the line, and Bob has it. Now here we have, I should say, this I think is right, Clarence Dock, but this I think I'm correct in saying is Stanley Dock, and this has got to be the tobacco warehouse. And there's got to be a two-level swing bridge here, swing or lift bridge or something in between. And so I'm really looking now. I've got one very poor photograph of it, and I'm looking for information about that. So if anybody sees this, has information about Stanley Dock dual level bridge. Now it's not the Bascule Bridge which is there today, which was renovated quite recently. So it's not that, because that's just a road bridge. It's this double deck railway bridge, because the Mersey Docks and Harbour Board line ran across at ground level over that as well. Right, but there are a couple of tilting bridges as well to give access for high loads into the docks underneath the Liverpool Overhead Railway, and that's certainly my current job, is building a tilting bridge to go on the Liverpool Overhead. And as you can see here, we've got the beginnings of, we're just beginning to map out the route of the Lancs and Yorks Railway. So we've got a tunnel to appear here, and various other bits and bobs. But Bob's already beginning to get the basic track plan down. But the sheer scale of this job is just immense. And one of the other aspects that I've been thinking about in doing this is what we're going to do here, the city. This is Liverpool all over here. There's no way I'm going to model the whole of Liverpool, or indeed anybody else's. But I'm wondering if we can get a back scene. So again, if anybody has access to, it's not a simple request. What we want is a 1920s, 1930s colour view of Liverpool from about ground level, running the whole distance from Dingle to Seaforth, with all the background, and that would be the background for this model. Then we could just bring the background in fairly close to the railway, and that would give us place it within the city of Liverpool. So there we are. That's the update for the Liverpool Overhead Railway as it is at the moment. So although it doesn't look like we've achieved much more since the last update, believe me, there's a lot has happened. And this particular point here, where the railway came off the viaduct and ducked down and came up like a switchback, is particularly important, that we've been able to reproduce that. And it's given us a much, concentrated our minds on how we're actually going to do some of the other jobs further on. Every time we move on to a new model or a new aspect of this railway, we find something original, something we've not encountered before, something we're just beginning to understand. And it takes a lot of thought and a lot of planning and very few, unfortunately, very little in the way of reference material. I think we've got every book, the handful of books that's been produced on the railway, and certainly everything online that is available. But still we need more. So if you do have any information about the Liverpool Overhead Railway or any of its component parts, they would be very welcome to us. I hope that's been of interest, this latest update. We have been ticking along with the job and enjoying it. And so if you have any queries or questions, then please post them. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and look out for the next update.